One of the big ones that we've seen in the last year and a half, has been phishing through SMS or text messaging. One of the things that we've noticed with our members is you guys are getting a lot better at finding email phishing. So the hackers have now switched to using text messages. So they'll send you a text message, and they may pretend to be from Island Savings or your financial institution, and they say, hey, we need you to click on this link to unlock your account. The one thing about text messages is they're very hard to see some of those pseudo differences that we may notice in a phishing email that may be wrong, like a wrong image or bad spelling. They're very short messages, and they get quite a few different people.
My mom actually sent me saying like, "Hey, Valley First, which is part of First West, is sending me an email and a text message." And I was like, "What?" And so she sent it to me, and it was very good. It looked authentic, and it was very much a scam. And so I got all tests. Like this one looked very legitimate. Click on this link, and so you got to really be discernitive of what you're going to look for. I think we're on slide number 7 too, just for folks going along through the slide deck. And the top should say how phishing email SMS, and then we're going to go on to the next one after that says how phishing social media is there.
And that's perfect. Yeah, these sites are getting really well done. The one thing to always remember is, Island Savings, First West, and I'd say the majority of the other financial institutions out there will never send you an email or text message saying that your account's locked out or that there's been a hack and that you need to log in to fix it. Generally, you'll always get a phone call. If you're a member of Island Savings, you'll always get a phone call from a branch saying that there's something wrong with your account. And I would expect that's the same with the majority of other financial institutions that are out there. So just remember that. If there is ever an email that says, hey, your account's locked out, you need to log in to unlock it, or do something to log in to fix your account, it's probably going to be a phishing email. So we'll pivot over to social media and phishing. This is a relatively new thing in the last couple of years, where we're starting to see a lot of phishing using the messaging apps within Facebook or Instagram. And we had one really big instance here on the island not too long ago where a woman had her Facebook account compromised. They then set up a fake profile of her nephew or her grandson. I can't remember who it was. With that fake profile, they started messaging her saying that he was actually in jail overseas and that she needed to send him some money, Bitcoin actually, what it was. And she actually came into our branch and asked to purchase some Bitcoin. And when our staff realized that we don't sell Bitcoin, that was a big red flag for us. We quickly realized that she was being scammed out of several $1,000s, I think it was at the time. So be very wary of messages coming through social media. A lot of them tend to be scams, and especially anything that wants payment or anything that it was just a really odd situation, and they prey on our older population because of this. Another one that we're going to go to is talking about website drive-bys. And this is a tough one for a lot of people because unbeknownst to yourself, if you're browsing to certain websites, you may have your computer or your device infected. What it infects it with, there's lots of different things that it can do. Ransomware, which I'll talk about later, viruses, Trojans. The key thing about avoiding these types of websites that may infect you is to ensure that you're always updating your devices, as well as be sure that what you're actually typing into the search bar or the URL bar is actually what it is, so google.ca. If you ever mistype Google, it will actually take you to some weird and odd spaces. So just be very aware that you can get malware from just going to a website at times.
Companies pay, or if you type in Google wrong, Google owns many of the different misspellings of Google because they know people will mistype it, but criminals will often find ways that Google doesn't think about, and they will own that website. So you type in Google wrong, and they think you're going to Google, but it's something else. So the scammers will choose popular websites, and just instead of an E, there'll be an I, or they'll misspell it, and then you're on their website versus the website you want to be at.
That's perfect. Great. Another one that we're seeing quite a bit, and we get a lot of questions on this, is what we call the Microsoft support scam or the pop-up scam. So at times, if you're on a website, and this could be, again, one of those website drive-bys, you may get a pop-up saying that your computer's infected, or you may actually get a phone call from somebody saying they're from Microsoft saying that your computer is infected and you need to connect to a certain website and they're going to run some tests on your computer. Microsoft doesn't pop up with pop-ups saying that your computer is infected. They'll never call you via phone to say your computer is infected. These are just pure scams to get you to pay money to fix a computer that probably is not broken. So if you start to see some of these pop-ups, they may say virus found or your computer's crashed, simply just restart your computer. Generally the pop-up will go away. It generally means that your computer is not infected for the most part that we've seen. And you can kind of carry on your day. If they start popping up again, you definitely want to have that machine looked at, but actually take it to a computer store to have it looked at. Don't call the numbers that are listed on the pop-ups for that support. The other one that's really scary to a lot of people is what we call ransomware. And what ransomware is it's some software that comes through those website drive-bys or those email links that you may click on that runs on your computer. This piece of software will run on your computer and it will encrypt all of your files, so your pictures, your sensitive documents. And when it's done encrypting all these files, it will pop up with a ransom notice on your web page or on the front page of your browser, saying that you need to pay 300-400 Bitcoin to get your files back and give you an email address to send that to. We never recommend paying the ransom on any of these. You're never guaranteed to get any of your files back. Period. And if you do happen to get your files back for any, for some luck, what stops them from encrypting your files again next week and getting more money out of you?
Just anything that's to deal with Bitcoin is a scam. Bitcoin, the reason they use it is it's untraceable. And so it's a way of you paying somebody and having no recourse, no tracing. When you wire someone money, send them a check, etc., there's recourse for that. But when you use Bitcoin, there is no recourse. So just like anyone says anything about Bitcoin, just know that's a huge red flag. Like this is a scam as soon as you hear the words Bitcoin.
Yeah, Bitcoin, as well as Apple iTunes cards, Amazon cards, that's another one that they're starting to go to because, again, you guys are all getting very aware of these scams out there. So now we're starting to see a bit of a shift to them using these prepaid cards that you can get at like London Drugs. That's kind of why now you see the big warning signs at London Drugs and Shoppers Drug Mart about these coins and if you're buying them for a scam. One that kind of worries us as a financial institution from a privacy perspective is what we call Trojans. What a Trojan is, it's a piece of software that may get onto your computer through the different ways, again, the phishing or the website drive-bys, and you never know that it's on there. That's why they call it a Trojan. And what these pieces of software do is they'll actually start up if you browse to Credential or islandsavings.ca or any of your financial institutions. They'll actually start and they'll start recording your keystrokes. So when you log into your websites, these sensitive websites, it will download that information and then send it to you, or send it to the hackers, and then they'll use that information to commit further identity theft or crime. One thing that may kind of tip you off that you have a piece of this type of software on your machine is when you're going to things like islandsavings.ca or Royal Bank or any of your financial institutions, your machine really starts to slow down and chug along for some weird odd reason. And that's just because these guys aren't very talented programmers. They're okay programmers. But when they program the stuff, they don't program it for efficiency. They program it to literally steal your data. And at times we notice that it really slows computers down when it's actually running.
I do want to point out, anytime, even if someone did get your credential login and can view your credential investments, they can't do anything with that. They can just view how much money you have. There's no only way you can get money from that account is by talking to me or Bev. And so I want to show you very secure. I always have that question, like, how secure is this? Yeah, credential is just view only. There's no way they can get in there and move money around. Like they can see how much money you have if they do get access to it, but there's no way for them to get money out of there. They have to go through us. So I just want to reassure you about that.
Perfect. That's great. There's other different types of malware types, that may run your computer. I'm not going to get into a super big depth with them, but they're just generally, loaded on your computer, and they'll just use your computer to commit other crimes. Is generally what some of the other stuff out there that we see. One of the biggest ones that we've seen in the last year and a half, and Travis's mom got this message from our Valley First thing, is these fake websites. So when we're seeing these fake SMS messages or text messages or emails that ask you to click on a link to log into your online banking, they're going to actually fake financial institution web pages. So a fake Island Savings web page, for instance, and it would look exactly like our current website. And when you actually go to log into that website, it'll almost perform the exact same way. It'll kind of crunch along, and then you'll enter your initial credentials, and then it's going to take you to a second page that generally will ask you those sensitive security questions that'll ask you. And you type in that information, and you go to hit submit to unlock your account, presumably. It crunches away again, and then all of a sudden it kicks back to the login page again. But now it actually goes back to the real Island Savings webpage. So you may think that something's wrong, you go to log in, and now it works, and then you kind of carry on your day. But by that point, they now already have your account code, your password, and then all the answers to your security questions. So I often get, our security questions, the be-all, end-all. And what I always say when it comes to actually, when we enter security questions at any websites we set up, I always say to lie. If you can legally lie about it. So, for instance, the CRA asks a question to log into their website, where did you honeymoon? And it's super easy to get that information from social media where you honeymoon. So I put in where I actually wanted the honeymoon. So Bora Bora or somewhere really nice that you can always answer. I'll always be 25 years old. Or my spouse's name is going to be Angelina Jolie or something like that. So when you have those security questions that ask, always just lie and use the same exact questions to that, so that if they get that information through social media, that those real answers to that, they may not get it. So my mother's maiden name, I use a completely different maiden name than what my mother's real maiden name is in those types of sites. Because if you do get compromised, at least they're going to have the wrong information, or if they get partially compromised, they can't get the other additional information. So that's a key thing to remember. But on these fake websites, one of the things they will do is they'll buy a domain name that looks very similar to islandsavings.ca or royalbank.ca, but it's generally missing possibly several characters, or they're going to add a dash into it. But one thing that we see very commonly is that they'll take out certain specific vowels out of a domain name. So islandsavings.ca, they may take the I out of savings. So when you actually look at the domain name, it actually looks somewhat real, because the human eye generally ignores vowels when we're reading it. So be very cognizant of that. So what we always recommend for all of our members to do is to bookmark islandsavings.ca on your computer. So if you do get an email or you do get something and you need to log in, you go through that actual bookmark that's on your computer. But one thing that I'll say is that Island Savings or Credential, any of these companies will never send you an email that will ask you to log into something to unlock anything. Credential is going to send your updates for your statements. Island Savings is going to send your statement updates, but there's never going to be any immediate action that's going to be needed to get into your account. With Island Savings, if your account is ever compromised, we will not send you an email. We're going to call you on the phone. It's going to be the same exact way through Credential or any of the other security companies that we do. They're going to reach out to Travis to say, hey, there's an issue with this member's account. Can you reach out and have them contact us? That is both the policy of both of our organizations. We're actually quite aligned in that respect. So just remember, and that's going to go over the most other organizations. We will never send you an email asking you to click on a link to unlock an account or update an account. So one of the things that we always tell all of our members is that I only have 5 rules that kind of keep you out of all of this trouble. And the first rule that I have is we want to make sure that we're always automatically updating all of our devices, just not our computers, just not our phones, like our computers, our phones, our laptops, those Internet of Things devices that we have. If we have some of those, we want to automatically update those devices as soon as those updates come out. And that protects you from those web drive-bys that, because majority of the vulnerabilities that we see on the internet that are exploiting our computers, they're patched a long, long time ago. If you patch your stuff automatically, you're going to protect yourself probably from 99.99% of the threats that are out there on the internet.
My wife, she used to never do the updates. She said, "Oh, it's going to slow down the computer." And so now that she knows that it's not going to slow down the computer, it's going to protect the computer. She's very cognizant of doing all the updates when they come down, because I think there's a conception out there when you do update your computer, it'll slow it down, but it's really protecting some of these vulnerabilities that are there.
Yeah, and that used to be kind of one of our old things when I started in IT, that we would never update right away because it was the kind of thing, well, if you update, you're going to break everything, you're going to take the network down, and all this other fun stuff. And that's been a big shift in the mentality of most IT professionals in the last, I'd say, only a couple of years, to be honest with you. But for myself as a security professional, I update everything automatically. And that kind of relays into number 2, is hire a technology professional that you can trust. And when I talk about a technology professional that you can trust, it's not the kid down the street, it's not your nephew, it's not your kids. It's somebody that you can take, a bonded technology professional that you can take your computer to, that can set it up the right way, that's going to set it up to automatically update, that's going to set you up with the right, anti-malware software, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes. They're going to do all those things. You don't, a technology professional that wants you to come back every month for your computer to be updated is the wrong technology professional. A technology professional should just set your stuff up to automatically update itself. And you should maybe only need to go in maybe once a year, if that, to get a tune-up nowadays on your computer.
Good point.
But again, we tell this to even our business members, hire technology professionals that we can trust. Island Savings, we've got almost 100 technology professionals that we've hired internally for our organization that do all the work for us. So, like anybody just needs to hire a good technology professional. And Best Buy, London Drugs, Memory Express down here in Victoria, they're all really good bonded computer companies. Smart Dolphins, which is just around the corner, is another really good one. When it comes to kind of some of the anti-malware software, I generally don't have any strong preferences, either or. There's lots of different brands. But in reality, nowadays, you don't necessarily need to pay for antivirus. There's some really good free ones out there. If you're on kind of the latest version of Microsoft, the last couple, from 7 to up to 10, Microsoft Defender is actually a pretty decent antivirus soft product. It's free. It automatically updates when you have those automatic updates set up, and it just runs in the background. It doesn't generally hog your resources or slow your computer down. But when it comes to antivirus software, one of the things the questions I often get is, do Macs get malware? And years ago, this was always the biggest, Macs don't get malware, they do get malware.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you go to the Starbucks across the street,
yeah,
what does everybody have in that Starbucks? They've got all their Macs. So because Macintosh computers are so prevalent now, these virus makers have now just switched over to, making viruses for Macs. So Sophos, and for those of you who don't have the slides, Sophos is spelled Sophos. They have a free Mac antivirus that's pretty decent. And actually their North American headquarters is over in Vancouver, okay. So a really good company. Malwarebytes is another one, and Bitdefender is another good malware choice. We've actually, as an organization, looked at all of these just to kind of test them out and see how they work, and they all work equally as good. So, rule number 3 is just generally how to understand the phishing. Anything that emphasizes those emotions, the fear or the lust, it's probably going to be phishing. We take phishing so seriously here at Island Savings. We actually phish test all of our staff every month. I send them emails trying to trip them up every month.
I will attest to this. Yes. They do that. Yeah.
And our staff are really good. I generally, it's almost about 1% out of 1,000 people that I can actually trick to click on an email. So be really cognizant of spotting those. And again, if it seems too good to be true, or they're threatening you with something, just simply delete the email. If you're unsure, call the CRA. Call the police department, or the one I seen very recently here in Victoria was a parking ticket.
Oh, okay.
So call the city of Victoria, or call whatever organization is trying to email saying you owe money, but go through the actual website of that organization to find that contact information. Don't use anything in that email to contact them.
So I'll tell a story. We had a lady come in, and she's wanted to wire some money to someone. This is a few years ago. And so the account manager started asking questions, and she was kind of guarded about it. And so finally it got out of her that someone had called her and said, "Grandma, And she said, "Oh, Timmy," like her grandson Timmy. It was a male's voice. She thought it was Timmy. He's like, "Yeah, I'm in jail." And so it wasn't Timmy. It was just someone, hearing an elderly person's voice and said, "Grandma" or "Grandpa," and so they did the math in their head, and nobody was in jail. And so we actually got them to call Timmy, and Timmy was doing fine, and he wasn't in jail, and he didn't need any money, and so she was going to wire $5,000 to some scammer. So that's one that we actually see quite regularly. And so when someone's asking you for more information about why you're wanting to wire money all of a sudden, that's kind of where it's coming from. So
that's a big, really common one. Another one that we see quite often, especially in our immigrant communities, over in Surrey and Richmond, is we're seeing a lot of immigration fraud, very similar, where they'll go through the phone book and pick certain ethnic names, and they'll actually call and say they're from immigration. 10 years ago when your family came over, 15, 20 years ago, you didn't fill out the right paperwork. We're now going to deport your family unless you pay us or wire us this information. They're always going to get you to wire the information. They're never going to get a thing. And it's kind of a bit of a, and they're leveraging, again, that fear piece, because when you let people, when they're coming from these third world countries, they don't necessarily have trust in the police. Yeah. So they'll pay the police off, and that's kind of how that scam works as well. So again, preying on vulnerable communities, our elderly population, we see that one grandma scam all the time in Oak Bay, here at Mayfair as well. So just be very cognizant of that, especially if you have older grandparents, or to make sure they're aware of that, to call. My grandmother's 95. I've talked to her about that scam all the time. She's got like 16, 20 grandkids. So it's tough for them. They don't realize when they call, and they just kind of mention a name, and that's how they figure it out.
If you're ever concerned, run it by me. Like me and Bev are here, and we hear about all this stuff. So if you're ever concerned about anything, run it by us, and so we'd be more than happy to help.
So rule number 4 is what we call using complex passwords. And what I mean by complex password is not, Princess 123 exclamation mark. What we like our staff to use is use a password phrase. So one of the ones that I like to use is "I like tacos" is a good example. It's a sentence. It's easy for me to remember. It's easy for anybody to remember. But one thing that people don't necessarily realize with passwords is you can actually use a space in a password. So, when we want to use those special characters, sometimes it's a bit difficult to remember what a special character is. So, for one, your Shakespeare, to be or not to be, this is the question. You can add a question mark. You can add an exclamation mark if you really want that to be really emphasis. Or, you want to have proper grammar, you can add your commas into that sentence. And that's a really long password. Yep. And if you remember how to type that out, it types out really fast. But one thing that we're starting to recommend to a lot of people is that we don't use the same password for everything. So what I'm recommending to most people, and I've recommended this to people in my family, is to use a password manager piece of software. So a LastPass or a sticky password or password keeper. And
these names are in the slide deck. So if you don't feel like you have to write them down, they're in the slide deck.
And one of the beauty things about especially LastPass, which I personally use, is that they are very secure. They keep the passwords in an encrypted folder in the cloud. But when you log in somewhere weird, so yesterday I was in Ladner, I was visiting our Ladner branch, and I went to log into my LastPass, and it actually sent me an email saying, "You're logging in from somewhere really weird that you've never logged in from before.
Oh, interesting.
Is this normal?" So it's got some really good security features in the back to protect those passwords. And the second thing, to even access those passwords, I have to actually use my thumbprint to open up the application.
That's a smart idea.
It's a really cool thing. I've got, last count, I think it's about 185 passwords that I have to remember. And the cool thing now is that with all those passwords, everyone is unique.
What about on my Apple iPhone here? It's got a password manager. Do you recommend using the Apple password manager for websites?
I think for the day-to-day stuff that you can. Anything that's going to hold any sensitive information, I probably wouldn't. Okay. So my CRA account's one of those ones that's up in my head. I remember that. My banking account's in my head. I don't remember that one. Okay. As well as anything that may have like a SIN number information or any sensitive information. So like BC Hydro, they actually have a bit of information on you because you got to give them your SIN number and stuff like that. And Shaw, we've actually seen some scams leveraging Shaw data. So they get access to your Shaw account and then they commit other crimes. So just very wary of what passwords you keep. You can also do what my grandfather does. I went and bought him a password book at Chapters. And I said, just write your passwords down here and lock it into your safe. Yeah. And then when he needs to go log into something he can't remember the password, he actually goes and gets that thing out of his safe. And he's got his password there. It's a nice, easy way to do it. And let's face it, it's more secure than having the same password for everything.
Yeah.
Because the reason we don't want the same password for everything is that if your account is compromised, say on a LinkedIn or something like that, they now have that password for all of your services. So
another tip to use is for your phone. You don't have to just use 4 characters. So like originally when you get your phone, it's 4 characters. You can make it a lot bigger. So my password for my phone is 7 or 8 characters. And so good luck trying to break into my phone because the password is so large that there's just no way random that the person's going to be able to do that. So.
And then rule number 5 is kind of one of my last rules is backup everything that we have. So, our phones, we often don't back up our phones,
Yep.
Back up our desktops. And one of the cool things now is with cloud technologies is you can have Google Drive or iCloud on your machine that automatically backs up all of those devices into one thing. So, when we're worried about the ransomware that comes out, that's the number 1 protection against ransomware.
Okay.
If your machine does get infected with ransomware, we can just simply wipe your machine and then re-download all of your data from the cloud. So, a cool example of how I leverage this in my personal life is my wife just finished her university degree. And all of her last year, all of her documents and all her thesis and stuff like that was on that laptop.
Wow.
So that's, $30,000 worth of data in reality and time that's on that laptop. So we just automatically had that laptop back up every time. Another one is anybody who's younger nowadays, and even our older population, uses their phones for pictures.
Yeah.
All of our pictures are on those phones. So with Apple now, they automatically update to the Apple iCloud. But it's just one thing to always remember is that back those up, because if your phone's stolen, it sucks, but now at least you just get your data back.
We pay, and Apple actually, there's only a certain amount that they'll back up. We pay $1.50 a month or something like that to have all our photos backed up because we needed more than what the free amount that Apple gave us, and so we just pay that, and it's well worth it for us to have that all the memories stored of Journey in Denver. Yeah.
So one thing I'll briefly just touch on this one. I won't get into too much, but it's mobile alerts. This can be mobile alerts on anything. So what we really strongly recommend as any of our members, and it doesn't matter if you bank with us or any other financial institution, is to set up mobile alerts on your accounts. So what a mobile alert is when something kind of odd happens in your account, it will send you a text message or an email. So, a personal access code gets changed. It'll send you a text message. This is a feature with Island Savings that we have. A new bill is added to your account. A new Interact recipient is added. And then if your account is locked out or security questions are answered, it will send you a text message. Why this is important is if somebody gets access to any of your banking accounts, they'll actually add a bill pay, so like the BC Hydros or Shaws, but to maybe one of those prepaid Visa cards, and they'll withdraw funds from your account that way, or they'll send it through Interact to kind of wash the funds. Another one they use quite often is buying gold bullion.
Yeah.
That's a super common one that we see a lot.
Untraceable after they get it.
Exactly. So that's kind of Credentials got it. I honestly haven't seen a banking website that does not have mobile alerts nowadays. So we'll kind of get into cybersafe social media. The one thing, we talked about this a little bit earlier, is there's an immense amount of information about us in our social media. So, we talk about, those security questions a lot of our web pages ask. What's your favorite sports team? Well, it's pretty easy if you go onto most people's social media to find out what their favorite sports team is, or what their puppy's name is, or where they honeymoon. A lot of that information is on social media.
Yeah.
So that's why we always encourage you to lie about and have your fake life. But we also want you to choose a really strong password for your social media, because we don't want to dissuade anybody from using social media. It's a very powerful tool, and it keeps us all connected. So use a strong password. Enable those enhanced security features. So what enhanced security features are on most social media, it's either blocking your profile from people or not showing pictures, those types of things. The one thing about this stuff is it's always constantly changing.
Yeah. So
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they all have really good documentation on their website about how to set this up.
Mm-hmm.
A couple tips I have is I have 2 social media profiles for Facebook.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So one I use to actually check my family's social media, my daughter's, my wife's social media accounts, my own, and I kind of test to see what information we're sharing. Another one that my daughter always tells me, she's like, if I don't know it, I just go look it up on YouTube. So how do I actually set it up to be secure? I checked last night actually on my way back over to the island how many videos there were how to set up secure Facebook, and there's lots of really good videos out there how to do that. So some really cool things there. The next one is I want to talk about traveling cyber safe, and I imagine for a lot of your clients, Travis, this is a big huge travels, right? But my grandparents they spend most of their time in the south in the winter, between Costa Rica and Palm Springs. So we always want to avoid using sensitive sites if we can when we travel, but sometimes we can't avoid it. Yeah. It's just the reality. We have to pay the bills or keep people paid, make sure the lawn's getting mowed when we're away. So we want to try to avoid the use of sensitive sites if we can. We want to make sure that password protect any of those devices we bring with us down when we vacation. So our phones, our laptops, and we don't want to leave those out of our sight. So when I travel, I always bring my laptop with me, and I'll have to either hide it in the car or just keep it in my backpack behind me. But because people will go into your hotel room, they will view your devices if they're there to see if they can get sensitive information out of them and possibly sell that information. Sometimes we talk about turning up Bluetooth depending on the country that you're in, to be honest.
Okay, really? Okay, wow.
Because they can get access to kind of your contact information. So if they want to play that contact scam, they'll be able to do that. If you're really worried about the information you have on your devices, minimize it, because when you do cross the border, it doesn't matter if you're going south into the United States or coming back, you are subject to customs inspection.
There's a TV show, Border Patrol. I actually really enjoy watching it. And every episode, they pick up somebody's phone and they start going through it, looking at pictures and stuff like that. So it does happen quite regularly. So that is a good point. It's
happened to me. Yeah. I have nothing to hide, and I still felt like very violated.
I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely.
By that. So if you're worried about that, definitely just minimize it or wipe your phone. It's kind of funny to watch it when I bring a wiped device across.
Yeah, why are you doing this?
Why do that? But again, I just don't like to have my personal life dug into. One that I really harp on this is when we have those hotel computers that try to avoid using them for anything sensitive. Period.
Yeah,
you don't know who uses them. It's amazing when I travel, and I travel a lot, that I see so many people doing sensitive information on those computers, logging into their banking. I've seen a lot of people's identities stolen while they travel through internet cafes and stuff like that. But to protect yourself, what you can do to protect that information, if you need to log into that sensitive site to change your bills, is use VPN.
What's VPN?
So VPN is a virtual private network. It's a service that you can run on your laptop or your device that will connect back to somewhere, either your home, which I have in my case, or a service, which I got here on the next slide. And it tunnels your information kind of in a protected cocoon so that nobody can read that information. So especially if you're in Costa Rica or the Dominican Republic, they don't have the greatest telecom systems there.
Yeah, right.
We don't know who controls those networks and who's watching your information. Sure. When we use a VPN, it's completely encrypted and they can't see that data. So perfect. When I travel, I connect to a VPN. So yesterday on BC Ferries, I was finishing up some work for later today, and I use my VPN to protect my information. Perfect. So NordVPN, so NORDVPN, is a really
This is on slide 34 as well. We are getting close to time. I want to keep time for questions. Maybe we'll just whip through a couple of the last slides here, and then we'll open it up for questions. So the slide, like I said, a lot of the stuff he's listing is on the slide, so just go to take a look, and you can grab those. So the
VPNs are great to use. So look at them. I recommend them. They're really cheap.
Oh, good.
Same as the wireless security. I feel it's very similar to traveling.
Okay.
So it'd be very odd, very suspicious using Starbucks or McDonald's to do that sensitive information.
Yeah, for sure.
If you need to, use the VPN again. It's always on your computer. The last couple things for all those phones, I think most people live on them nowadays, is to ensure that they're automatically locking.
Yeah.
So use that big PIN code that you said you sent, or the thumbprint, which is really cool to use, and it's super secure actually. And then the other piece is to enable the locked device functionality. So if you lose your device, you can lock it or you can locate it. So the Find My iPhones really, really kind of important. Last two slides here. Internet connected devices, the Internet of Things, the Google Voices, the Amazon Alexas.
Oh yeah.
Super popular nowadays.
Yep.
If you're not super sure in your technology, have that technology professional install this for you, because they can be exploited. They can be used against you. I don't necessarily have a comment if the government's listening to them all the time.
Yeah.
But internet connected devices are your refrigerators, your thermostats. Nowadays.
Someone hacks in, they can hear your conversations, get personal information.
Yeah. Or just use it to attack other things. Yeah. So just be wary of that. And the last one that I get kind of all the time is debit tap security. Secure. So debit tap security, so your Interac tap, the one that you get from your bank, is pretty secure. Okay. You need to be about 3 centimeters away to even scan those.
Wow,
cards.
that's okay.
It's super close. One thing that people don't realize is that Interac's got a zero liability policy. So if your account is skimmed through a device, that they'll refund you the money.
Okay.
They will do. One thing to take that a bit better, what I always recommend to everybody is if you want to use tap on your cell phone. So your Apple Pay or your Android Pay. That right now is the most secure.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I didn't realize that.
I get kind of frustrated when I go to a place that doesn't have it nowadays.
So just to highlight that, I'm not sure, I've got it set up on my phone. Your phone, you can actually set up all your credit card or debit card information, and when you go somewhere, if they've got the little 4 little dots at the top of the machine, and you can tap it. So you double press the button on the Apple phone, or I'm not sure it works on Android, and then your card comes up and you put your thumbprint on, and then you can just pay for something that way, and then there's a message that's sent to you saying this was used. And so it's really handy because you don't need to take your wallet out if you go somewhere. Oftentimes you just take your cell phone with you. So, and it's really secure. I didn't realize that.
It's super secure. It's the new, it's the future.
Okay.
And because it uses your thumbprint,
or
your biometrics, it's nobody can use it. So even if they get the information from the device, you still need a thumbprint.
No, interesting. Okay. Okay, so we're going to open it up. I'm going to open up the lines now. I'm going to take everyone off of mute. And we're going to start with some questions. I've got one question that was emailed into me. So while I'm doing this, the question was, how secure are some of these sites like Ancestry.com and what was the other question here? Ancestry.com, family history sites. Can they be hacked? And so can some of the sites that you're storing information or looking up your family history be hacked?
I think anything can be hacked. In reality. So it's the information that we choose to store online about ourselves is what we've got to be really aware of. There's a ton of information on Ancestry.com, as anybody knows who does it. So just be very sure, especially if you're uploading the information, that you are if you're putting information into Ancestry.com, you're still responsible for that data. So just be very aware of that. So yes, anything can be hacked. Credential can be hacked, island statements can be hacked. It just honestly it depends on the technology in the back end. I know we're very secure. Credentials are extremely secure as well. I've never honestly dug into Ancestry.com security, so I can't really give a.
There was one site that for people were dating, to have affairs. I can't remember the name of it, but it was hacked, and then all this information about these people who were listed on there. There's all these senators from the states and whatever, and so obviously didn't have a high security. I think any financial institution, CRA is going to have the highest security, and then it would go down from there. Would be my understanding. So, open up for more questions. Who else has got a question?
You mentioned that we should do automatic updates, but I have a 40 gigabyte computer that won't let me do automatic updates anymore, even though I don't have any data stored on it.
Yeah, so that one's a tough one because it can be very device specific, to be honest with you. And I would honestly take it in to have it looked at. To see what the issue is, because sometimes with updates they don't clear it properly. We've seen that in the past and stuff.
And so is it a laptop or is it an iPad that you have?
The laptop.
Laptop. Okay. And it might be. It's probably a really old one, is it?
It's only about 2 years old. It's one of those hybrid tablet things.
Oh, okay. So yeah, good idea just to take it in, and they might be able to clear some stuff off of it that you're not really being used anymore, and they'll be they'll be able to install the updates on it. So that might be a good way, because if you don't have any of the updates and you haven't done updates for a while, your computer would be exposed to some of this stuff that's out there.
40 gigs isn't a lot of space at all nowadays.
Oh, good question. Other questions?
On Aubrey.
Any other questions?
I've got a question.
Yes.
It's Bob.
Yeah.
I'm 69, and we have a PC and a laptop and an iPhone. My question is, how often should I take them in for a tune-up or a checkup. I don't have any problem with any of them, but how often should I, on a regular basis, have them checked out?
The iPhones are generally really good, to be honest with you, because you can't really fiddle with them on the back end, to be honest. What I recommend, and this is I do this for my grandfather, is I go and do a tune-up on his once a year. Is I go through, I clean up the old programs, I either get to bring the shopping feeds here on the island, or I go do it. So about once a year is probably good. If you're using it all the time for your business or constantly, maybe twice a year just to have it looked at. It's kind of good. They can blow it out. They do the physical kind of clean of it as well, which is always helpful.
I got this email. The question it says, is it possible to accept an e-transfer by logging into Island Savings directly rather than through the email notice or e-transfer? So you get an e-transfer for someone and it comes up. How can you access that? Do you have to click on that link if someone's e-transferring you something?
No, I don't think you do anymore. I think it actually pops up in if your email is associated with us. I'd have to double check that though.
Okay. Well, we'll get back to you on that question there. I've got the email, so I'll forward that on to Ryan. He can get back to you. So another question was a week ago. I was trying to. There's another island-specific question. So Bob, I will get back to you on that one. Different Bob didn't just ask the question. Any emails I'll get back to you because they're kind of more specific. Any other questions here? And if you don't feel like talking in front of the group, please email me and I will forward them on to Ryan, and he would be happy to email you back or give you a call. So I know we've been on here for 50 minutes, and that is quite a long time. So I'll cut it off there. And like I said, please, if you have questions, email them to me or give me a call, and we'll make sure you get answered. Really appreciate everyone coming onto the call, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you.
You're welcome.